So, Michael, Britain in tears, but the ex-colonies not so much. Why then did we retain the Queen as our head of state for so long?
That's a very good question. I don't have the answer for that question. Maybe it's a matter of, just retaining what you're used to, because sometimes change can be scary.
It can't just be because the judges want to keep their wigs and lawyers their QC designations.
I think it's a lot deeper than that, although some of us enjoy those trappings.
Are reparations, much less an apology, really on the cards?
I hope so. One of the issues that some of us have is that during the Queen's 70-year reign, there was no apology for the atrocities committed by her predecessors, her ancestors. She comes from a line of people who have dehumanized and brutalized my ancestors, many of our ancestors. And an apology would have been nice, but it wasn't forthcoming. And whereas the Queen did not commit these atrocities, she benefited from the spoils of the pillaging and plundering that took place.
And that was the thrust of an article you wrote in the Gleaner, the lingering legacy of the colonial past.
That's it, because that legacy still affects us today.
Remind people how?
There's something called generational trauma. And when you have people being traumatized for hundreds of years, it literally affects their DNA and their genes and how they're expressed. So a lot of that trauma can be transmitted from generation to generation.
How does the trauma play out today?
So there are many examples. I can give you one. For example, it's been found that, research has found that corporal punishment is not in the best interest of kids. And you find that societies that have survived colonization and slavery tend to utilize that very, 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 very much. So for example, Jamaicans, African Americans, Native Americans, the Irish, you find it prevalent in these societies, and it doesn't really help us. That's just one example. There are many examples. For example, the high incidence of depression, anxiety, and PTSD in our society, that's part of the legacy as well.
So we brutalize each other, and that's a legacy of slavery.
Most definitely, but I'd like to also add that even though it's part of the legacy, we can't blame slavery for all our ills. We acknowledge that this is partly responsible, but we have to take some responsibility for fixing some of this ourselves. And I think that the Queen's death has ignited a lot of conversations about slavery and the legacy of slavery, but hopefully it will ignite conversations about what we can do to heal from this.
Politicians enjoy the debate, though, because it takes attention away from their own failings.
And that is one of the things we need to take responsibility for. When we gained independence, we had a great chance to be a much greater nation than we are now. But some of our political leaders have made things really, really bad for us. We live in a country where corruption is endemic. And we need to look at ourselves as well. We can't just blame everything on the monarchy and the legacy of slavery. We acknowledge that it contributes to our problems. But we need to take a good look at ourselves as well and determine how we can move forward from this.
Some people like the idea of retaining the Privy Council because they're not sure about a Caribbean Court of Justice.
And that is a rational concern. So I do understand that. So we have to be careful not to throw out the baby with the bathwater and take a close look at what we have to gain or lose if we sever ties.
Do you have anything nice to say about the Queen?
I don't have anything bad to say about the Queen, man. I extend condolences to her family and her loved ones and the millions of people around the world who were fond of her. This is not an opportunity to bash the Queen or be disrespectful. I'm just not mourning her.
God save the Queen!